Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, you have come together in Seoul for a workshop that from my perspective is a critical part of the inquiry into how we are able to address some of the fundamental questions about economic transition and whether we use labels such as transition towards a green economy or transition towards green futures, be it in the paradigm of green growth, of sufficiency, of ecological civilization, or of living well, buen vivir. We are all part of a global community engaged at the front lines of research and particularly of studying how communities, countries, nations, businesses, leaders across our societies have tried to find some of the crucial answers that will allow us to envisage a 21st century of development, economic, social and environmental development that will take us closer to both the paradigm and, more importantly, to the fundamental scientific parameters of defining what sustainable development represents. In recent years, the notion of green growth, green economy, and many related concepts are essentially a reflection of the fact that in virtually all of our countries, environmental degradation, pollution, resource inefficiency, and the inequitable impacts it has had on parts of our society have moved to the center stage. Yes, it was in 1992 at the Rio Summit, the Earth Summit, that the world first began to articulate the sustainable development concept. But let us be honest, even at Rio +20, the world is still struggling with trying to find not only a narrative, but indeed a conceptual and implementation framework of how to achieve a practical and policy and development relevant set of directions that allow us to achieve economic progress, social progress, while maintaining the ecological integrity and functionality of our planet. In our studies that we have begun to undertake and in the context of UNEP as a result of a governing body decision and subsequently a project on studying country experiences around green economy or green economy relevant approaches, we have started to focus on the experience of China with ecological civilization, Thailand with its sufficiency concept, South Africa with its green economy policies, and also Bolivia's approach with buen vivir, that while different in their articulation and different in their outlook, very often speak to the same challenge. Our hope is that through this notion of both understanding how different countries, communities and economies are addressing their very national, location and community-specific challenges, can also yield lessons that allow us to look forward to a South-South cooperation approach that will very quickly disseminate lessons, be they in the domain of policy, technology application, economic incentives, fiscal policy regimes, or indeed also in trying to understand the relationship between government and public policy and how citizens, be it local farmers, be it businesses and industry, can become part of the solution rather than, as we have often experienced, amplify the challenge. I would particularly like to acknowledge and thank also the Global Green Growth Institute for having reached out and having become part of a global community that is pushing the front line of our analysis, but more importantly also of providing inspiration, guidance, and the platforms on which we can share knowledge and experience. In this, the crucial year of 2015, with already a major UN conference on disaster risk reduction having taken place, the Addis Ababa Summit on Financing for Development still ahead of us, as well as the September post-2015 development agenda, as much as the adoption of the Sustainable Development Goals looming large on the calendar, and finally the Paris Climate Conference. We have good reason to believe that we are a critical part of the world's attempts to find an answer to 21st century development pathways that will have to be significantly, materially different from the last century. A last piece of good news to encourage us to continue to pursue that path is just the recently released Global Trends in Renewable Energy Investment report that UNEP, together with Bloomberg New Energy and the UNEP Center of Excellence of the Frankfurt School, just issued in the month of April. The numbers are not only stunning in terms of their size, a total of $271 billion having been invested in new electricity generating infrastructure exclusively in the renewable energy sector, which is equivalent to close to 50% of all new electricity generating infrastructure having been brought onto the grid last year. But for our discussion, our work and your workshop in particular, Also the phenomenon that close to half of these $271 billion were in fact mobilized and invested in new infrastructure in the so-called Global South. We have seen new energy economies and paradigms emerge almost overnight as a result of policy, imperative technology availability, and mobilization of finance. Learning the lessons from different national development approaches, policy and implementation tools will be critical to accelerating this momentum. Therefore, I hope that out of the workshop in Seoul, we will get a further refinement of what we can take back to countries, governments, actors in civil society, parliaments, but also the private sector, to inform their decision-making. We can learn from one another, and let me also be frank, on the issue of sustainable development, the truth is, very often we can learn more and faster by looking closer at what is happening in the Global South. Have a very good workshop, and we hope to see the partnership between GGGI and UNEP go to ever greater heights and also successes in trying to demonstrate that a new development pathway is not only possible, but has already begun to emerge. Thank you.